All right, good afternoon, y'all. So again, this is the Iliad, book 16. So I know you read the majority of the book in class, and you took class notes over the plot line, what was happening. But while we're going through this, I really highly encourage you to be taking notes, especially of information that is new for you that you didn't catch while you were reading it today in class on your own. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Book 16 begins with basically chaos happening in the Greek camp. The fighting has sort of gone in the Trojans' favor, and so the Greeks have been pushed all the way back, pretty much to their ships. The Trojans have broken through the wall that the Greeks have put up around their ships, and so they're threatening to burn the boats, which would pretty much mean that the Greeks had lost the war. It would be it for the Greeks. Their way home would be gone, their food would be gone, their shelter, so they are pretty much stranded. So it is a dire situation. And books 12 through 15, which are the books that we've skipped over, basically Patroclus has been going through the back lines, seeing parts of the fighting, observing what's happened, and so this has really bothered him. He's come back from meeting with Nestor. Remember, Nestor has told him, hey, put on the armor of Achilles, lead the Myrmidons out, because something has to be done. But Patroclus has finally made his way back to Achilles' tent, and he's crying as he comes in. And so Achilles is really confused about what's happening, and he starts asking him some questions. So Achilles' first initial reaction to Patroclus crying is to ask him what's going on. And so he asks him, hey, has something happened? Have you gotten word back from Myrmidon, back from where we're from? He asks him specifically, like, hey, have you heard from my father? Something happened to Peleus, my father. And of course, Patroclus answers no. This, however, brings up a really important point that we need to talk about. Achilles dearly cares about his father. We've talked about his two motivations. The first one is kleos, the second one is honor, fame and honor. But a third one that we could say is Achilles really desperately cares about his father. And so this question here where he sees Patroclus crying and he asks, like, hey, has Peleus died? That shows us a little bit about the inner life of Achilles, what he cares about. Patroclus, though, of course, is upset because the Greeks are pretty much about to lose the war. Lots of their friends who are commanders have been injured. The boats are about to be set on fire. And so he makes a request to Achilles. He asks him, hey, can you let me borrow your armor? I would like to lead out the Myrmidons into the fight. Let me borrow your armor so we can make some headway here. Armor is extremely important. Of course, armor protects you when you're in battle, protects you from any wounds and anything like that. It's also incredibly personal. It would almost be a way that people can tell who you are by the armor you're wearing. It would be crafted specifically for you, so it's not like football pads where like everyone gets pretty much the same thing. Armor, on the other hand, would be custom made, fitted exactly to the dimensions of your body. It would be personalized, different types of metal, different colors, different depictions on the armor, on the shield. Think the best way to consider what armor would be like to the Greeks is almost like a leather jacket that would like keep you safe, that would protect you. You know, the leather jacket displays everything that you have accomplished in high school, and so armor would almost be the same way. So letting someone wear your armor would be a huge sign that first of all, if it was someone you liked, that you love that person, right? An incredibly personal, intimate thing to let that person wear your armor. Or if it was someone that you had killed, it would almost be like a sign of bragging. Okay, like imagine if the football team had to give their leather jackets to another school every time they won a game. So similar idea there. Fighting to retrieve the armor of someone who had been killed was also a big deal. You want to make sure that you get the armor back because that represents that person's identity. And it would be a huge dishonor if the armor was lost. So it's a big deal. And Achilles is willing to grant Patroclus's request. He does, though, however, give Patroclus one really specific direction. You can take my armor, and you can take the Myrmidon fighters, and you can go out and you can push the Trojans past the wall. Get the Trojans away from the Greek ships, but then you have to stop. Okay, do not go past the wall. Do not try and take the war to the city. And of course, Patroclus agrees and says, yeah, absolutely, I can do that. I will not go past the city walls. So Achilles gathers up the Myrmidons together. There's 5 ships each having 50 soldiers on them, so we could say there's about 250 of them. And as they go out, the Myrmidons make an instant impact. The Trojans are routed, and they start running back to the city. And of course, Patroclus is thrilled, and he starts pursuing them. So the Trojans are running away. Patroclus is having a great time. He's pushing them. The Myrmidons are driving the Trojans away. He does not stop at the wall. He does not stop when the Trojans are away from the ships, like Achilles told him. He doesn't listen. He's too excited. He's too thrilled by the result of the battle, and so he keeps fighting. And so the Greeks rush out past the wall, out into the field in front of Troy. So they're really, really close to the city itself. Trojans are running away. They're trying to get back into the city. They're panicking. However, he's not technically a Trojan. He's an ally of the Trojans, steps up. His name is Sarpedon. You'll see his name there. It's Sarpedon, Sarpedon. But Sarpedon sees Patroclus, sees the Greeks coming, and he decides, I'm going to do something about this. And so he steps up to go fight Patroclus and the Myrmidons. Sarpedon, you need to know, is a son of Zeus, which makes him a hero. He's really powerful. He's a great leader. We've seen him in other parts of the epic so far, but here is sort of the most famous scene having to do with Sarpedon. Sarpedon, his fate is to be killed right now. His fate is to die at the hands of Patroclus on this day. However, Zeus knows that Sarpedon's fate is to die. Zeus is watching from Olympus. He's watching the battle happen. And usually we think of Zeus as almost like this selfish person. He's a pig, right? He's terrible with women. He's terrible to his wife. He's not fair. He's jealous. All of those sort of things. But here, as Zeus is watching the battle and he sees Sarpedon, we almost have like a human moment with Zeus. He sees Sarpedon and he thinks to himself, wow, I really wish I could do something. And he talks to Hera and he says, I don't want to watch Sarpedon die. I don't want to see my son die. And Hera says, you can't do anything about it. This is fate. You have to let Sarpedon be killed. And of course, this is incredibly difficult for Zeus because it's fate. One thing you need to know, the Greek gods were technically below fate. The gods can influence people's lives, but they are not above destiny. They're not above what fate has decided for people. They can try to change it, but they know it's wrong to do so. Later on, Greeks, later in ancient Greek thought, the gods are even unable to change fate. But here they know it's wrong to do so. Now this concept of fate as being above the gods, outside of the gods' reach, is shown earlier in the epic. We're told when Patroclus is asking Achilles to go fight, it says, so he pleaded lost in his own great innocence, condemned to beg for his own death and brutal doom. Fate is coming for Patroclus. It's gut-wrenching to think about Zeus having to stand there watching his son Sarpedon get killed. Um, it's hinted at earlier when Paris and Menelaus are going to duel. Priam is on top of the walls at Troy, and he decides that he can't watch, and he has to leave. This even goes back to that idea that Achilles is concerned about his father, about Peleus back home. Um, and it's incredibly moving and sad, but Zeus has to admit that he can't do anything about this, that he shouldn't even try to do anything about it. And he permits his son Sarpedon to die. Sarpedon is killed by Patroclus, and there's a huge, gigantic battle over Sarpedon's armor. And then in the process of this, usually the body would be mutilated because people are literally like fighting on top of it. However, Zeus famously sends the god of death and the god of sleep to go steal Sarpedon away. So he's literally like snatched where he's laying there and taken back to his home, and he's given burial. And so you see the image here is actually it's from a vase, but it shows Sarpedon who is prostrate, being carried away by death and by sleep to be buried. Zeus cannot stop Sarpedon from getting killed, but he can give him a proper burial. Death, but burial in particular was a huge, important deal to the Greeks. Traditionally, a person wouldn't technically be buried, as in lowered into the ground, but their bodies would be burned. They would be cremated, and the ashes would be scattered. So you want the body to be cremated as soon as possible. That is the way to honor the body. However, if you didn't like a person and you had captured the body in war, oftentimes the body would be desecrated, would be abused, would be hit, cut, just like as if the person had still been alive. So it would be a huge dishonor to the person, and until a person had been cremated, their body would not be able to move into the afterlife. So the Greeks believed that there was like a literal, tangible, almost like a holding cell, where you would be before your body from the point that you were killed until when your body was properly cremated and you were burned, and you were always in that holding cell until your body was properly burned. And so if you have a body and you desecrate the body, it's dishonor to the person, and it's causing that person not to be able to move into the afterlife. So Zeus prevents this from happening with Sarpedon. Death and sleep snatch him away, and he's taken back to his home where he is properly buried. But it is a pretty moving scene to think about Zeus watching as his son is killed. So Sarpedon's death panics the Trojans even more. They keep running back to Troy because they're scared. So they're running for the gates. However, in the midst of the Trojans, Hector is running as well. He's scared. He wants to go back into the city. And so, of course, this isn't a good thing from the Greeks' point of view. Hector would not be looked upon well for this. However, from a modern perspective, we need to think about he's going back to the city. Who is in the city? His wife, Andromache, his son, Astyanax, they're back in the city. So we can imagine him going back to be with them. However, Apollo, the god, disguises himself as another Trojan, runs up to Hector, who's running away, and says, "Stop. You need to stop. Stop running away. Turn around and go save the city." And so again, we have another instance where Hector is motivated by, okay, I don't want to fight here. I'm scared to fight here, but I need to somehow protect the city. I need to do whatever I can to protect Andromache and my son. And so he turns around and he goes to fight. Fighting begins again. The Trojans sort of turn around to go meet the Greeks. Patroclus, by this time, has made his way all the way up to the city walls. And again, remember, Patroclus was told by Achilles to turn around at the wall. But here he is, at the Greek wall. Here he is all the way across the plain in front of the city of Troy. and he's about to try and storm the gates. But we're told that Apollo literally shoves him, and so he's pushed back a little bit onto the field. This happens 3 different times. And so while Apollo is pushing him back, Hector sees him, and Hector walks up to Patroclus. They're in the middle of the battle. Fighting is happening. Patroclus gets speared by a soldier. And then Hector comes up while Patroclus is wounded, and Hector finishes him off and kills him. Of course, this is going to have a huge impact on the war. We're going to see what happens with this. But that's it for the notes. So feel free to go back and watch this again. Pause it whenever you need to. Make sure you're jotting down the important stuff. You need to definitely know about Achilles and fathers. Definitely need to know about the importance of armor, how it's significant. Know what Patroclus is doing to try and save the battle. You need to be able to tell me all about Sarpedon. Tell me who he is. Tell me about what he does. And also you need to be able to have a discussion about fate, how the Greeks viewed fate, also how the Greeks thought about burial, and then finally the ultimate fate of Patroclus with Hector. So that's going to be it. Don't forget to do the discussion question. So I also have asked you to include a keyword or a key phrase into the discussion. So I literally want you to put this on top of your discussion before you start typing your paragraph. That key phrase is going to be, I don't like SparkNotes. Okay, that is it. Good luck on your discussion.